Hey, what's up, everybody? So this video is a bit from a stream, a highlight. I specifically did this bit in the stream though because I did want to upload it to YouTube. Um, I watched someone else's video, or parts of it at least, on stream. I'll post the original in the description about the Shadowlands PvP vendor, and he brought up some good points. And things have already changed a little bit. There was a new blue post on Wowhead today, as of me recording this little intro bit, which is a couple days after the highlight here. But I still wanted to upload it anyway because he made some good points, and I sort of did this as more of like a discussion, like just food for thought, really. So take it all with a grain of salt. Think on your own 2 feet. Check out Wowhead. Look at what they've posted, and maybe discuss that in the comments what you think about a PvP vendor in general. And let me know. See you all next time.
Before we get back to the feedback process of it, let's just straightforward look at what it looks like. You'll be able to buy a piece of gear that is 158 item level. Okay, that's initially. So you'll go to random battlegrounds until you get 3,675 honor, and then you can come to this vendor, and I could buy this two-handed pole arm, and it'll have versatility mastery, let's say, right? And I'll buy it. In comparison of that gear, right? Let's look at Raid Finder, right? What does Raid Finder award me? So Shadowlands, Castle Nathria is the first raid. On Raid Finder difficulty, what kind of item level? So Raid Finder gear is 187. That is massively higher than the random battleground gear, right? At 158, nearly 50 item levels higher from Raid Finder. Now you can utilize honor to upgrade these items. So let's say I went through some battlegrounds, I bought this sword. Now I'm gonna have to continue to go through random battlegrounds to upgrade it. It's gonna cost me 2,600. I feel like the totals are still not decided, and I can upgrade it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. It's costing more and more. 5 times. I can upgrade my honor piece 5 times, bringing it to 190 item level. Okay, so 190 item level. Again, the Raid Finder was 187. That's a lot of grinding for one piece of gear that is, in my mind, equivalent to a Raid Finder piece. Now, in Battle for Azeroth, if you played, you'll probably remember Blood of the Enemy as an essence to unlock.
Yeah, there's an update for SOT.
A pretty nasty
in a couple days.
To get in the process. Now, I don't know what the exact value. I'm probably going to have to grind 30,000 honor. 0. Won't be able to upgrade it, so a mythic 0 will be worse than the random battleground gear after you upgrade it with somewhere close to 30,000 honor according to these numbers, and probably for Ret in general. Even I'm not sure the stat priority of Ret and PvE and Shadowlands, but it's going to be a really long time of grinding. I think to the point where I would just rather do a mythic 0 dungeon than do that many random battlegrounds to get a piece of gear that's a Raid Finder piece. And a lot of the slots don't have the stats that I want. Why do I want to put time into upgrading a pair of boots with crit and haste? And I buy this weapon, and then a few months down the road, I'm 2,400 rating in arenas, and that's generally the highest item level threshold for gear. It's 2,400. So would I be able to bring my two-hander that I started with and upgrade it with Conquest? There's a lot of unanswered questions just translating over from Battle for Azeroth, which ultimately don't matter too much because honor was just more or less a cosmetic. You would.
Okay, so 30,000 honor. If it's anything like the old honor grind, completely irrelevant. 30,000 honor is minimum. Takes you no time. And even so, it's a 193 piece every day. or a 190 piece every day. Every day. Guaranteed. You can gear yourself out. $16 days. A piece a day for 16 days puts you at 190 item level, roughly. When... I mean, yeah, you could just do your arena cap for the unranked Sinful Gladiator's Great Cloak, I guess. Seems a lot more logical. But 500 Conquest was the cap at one point in BFA. If that is no longer the cap, and you can grind it like you used to be able to, well, even then there was a weekly cap. Like, you could only get one piece a week through Conquest back then. Yeah, I could see how that honor grind would be redundant, thinking about it.
Wouldn't want to be wearing the random battleground gear forever. So maybe they just want the random battleground gear for super PvP casuals, so you can upgrade your gear to Raid Finder. I mean, if you're out there and you're somebody who just logs in and does random battlegrounds, that's all you do, and this seems appealing to you, please let me know in the comments down below. But the way that I used to view the PvP gearing system was that you got max level and you just started doing random battlegrounds. That got you at least a decent set of gear to then go into rated arenas or rated battle. 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000. It's going to take you 7 weeks to get to this weapon. And when you're unranked, it's basically a raid finder weapon. You'll have to get higher rating to upgrade this gear. So is it going to be a competitive option? Surely it is going to be for the slots of gear that have your best stats. I do see myself, for example, wanting to get this polearm as a Retribution Paladin. It's two-handed. Actually, does it have strength? Doesn't look like it has strength. This is an intellect weapon. Okay, maybe I'm not interested in getting the weapon from PvP. It's crit inverse. It's like somewhat better, but I'd rather get something other than crit. It's just I feel like it's like it's such a hard word to describe the way I feel about this when I look at it. Because by all technicalities, it is a PvP vendor. I earn a PvP currency, I come here and I buy gear from it from doing PvP. The problem on my observation is that the gear is all bad. So why do I want to earn currency to buy bad gear for my character? I don't. I would rather do the PvE content and get gear that is good for my character that then lets me play arena and win arena because gear matters. The other thing to take into consideration, something that, which ironically is what we're asking for, because I feel like at the end of Warlords of Draenor, a lot of PvPers wanted templated PvP that Legion delivered. If anything, they wanted Legion to be more templated than it was, where you wouldn't need to grind artifact power and you wouldn't need to unlock your honor talents. I actually feel like a lot of at least ranked PvP players wanted it more templated than it was in Legion. And then when the templates were lifted and the gear that was awarded from PvP wasn't great and you had to PvE to get it,
only casuals wanted the template.
Grinding gear became really a problem to get.
Sounds like an elitist thing to say, right? Only casuals wanted the template, but hear me out. The issue with the template is it didn't reward you for playing the game. You would log in and instantly have everything you needed. You'd do arenas, and then you'd get gear drops from it, and you would vendor it. That sucked. Templated PvP is cool only for people who don't have the gear. But if you're actually trying to get somewhere in the game and actually get some rating and actually get higher in arenas and actually earn some achievements that you've never obtained before, like you want Gladiator for the first time or some shit, templates would not help you. They would actually make it harder. Because now everybody has access to Gladiator instead of just the people who actually play the game.
At least for players who wanted to focus on PvP. To me, the only way to solve this gear is to have a PvP stat. To solve it in a way that satisfies someone who wants to be a PvP gear progression player, right? That is the only way, because it's fair enough, you know. If I'm a PvE player, right? If you think about this for a second, and gear is gear in WoW. If I go do my dungeon and it's entirely random what I get, my piece of loot might never drop, right? But if a PvP player can earn a currency and buy the exact piece that they want, that's unfair. That's just inherently unfair, right? So for the gear to be competitive and equivalent to PvE gear awarded from PvE content, I shouldn't say PvE gear, but gear awarded from PvE content, if it's deterministic like this where you pick it, it has to have worse stats, or it has to be lower item level, or both. Otherwise, it's inherently unfair towards making a PvE player have to PvP, right? So,
No, not right. Because there is no restriction on PvE other than the raid. If you're a PvEer, do the raid. Sure, you can get unlucky. Clear the entire raid, you don't get anything. It sucks. But you're a PvEer, so you go run Mythic Plus. And at the end of a Mythic Plus, you're guaranteed a piece of gear. With no restriction. Downside, if you fail the timer but still complete it, only one piece of gear drops. You get unlucky. So you don't fail it, and then like 3 or 4 pieces of gear drop. And then your odds of getting a piece of gear are increased by over 80%. So, logically, if you're going to make a PvP vendor, it can be competitive. Simply because PvEers also have a way to guaranteed get gear. They get a weekly chest. They do Mythic Plus, which guarantees gear.
me, the only solution is to have a PvP specific stat. Resilience, PvP power. It's been so many different names that it's.
That is also fair. The fix to this entire system is the sham that it is. Make the PvP vendor give you gear that's actually relevant, but give it a tertiary stat. PvP power or PvP resilience. That is completely useless in PvE. And it hurts your ability to PvE somehow. So that way, you know, you don't go to the vendor. You see it has PvP resilience. You're like, oh, it has PvP resilience. That's fine, even though I don't PvP, because it's not going to affect me anywhere else other than in PvP. That's fair logic. Actually, I take all that back. Replace one of the secondary stats with that PvP stat. So they only get versatility or mastery instead of both. And they get the PvP core stat. Then you could up the item level to 9 million and it's not going to matter. A PvEer won't want it. Great idea to fix this. Just give more choices of stats from the vendor. Even then, the current vendor, as it stands, you could have every single stat option on there, and it would still just be useless. The item level's ass. Beyond ass. You don't buy it, ever. Your honor still goes to waste. The honor is just a measure of experience in Battlegrounds to support the idea of getting achievements and mounts and pets and titles and a toy.
Scales when you attack a player to a higher item level, so that when you're in PvP, the PvP gear is the better gear. That's the only solution, but it's not what's being offered. So if it's
I don't think it's the only solution, but it would be an easy solution. They've done it before. Mr. Pandaria with reforging. PvP power and PvP resilience. Mind you, reforging was pretty broken. Okay. But the talent system was awesome as fuck. You still had a specialization. You were still a Frost Mage or a Fire Mage or an Arcane Mage. But you could still have secondary effects from another spec that was just useful. Additional crit from Fire as a Frost Mage on the first tier. Match that with some PvP power and PvP resilience, and you were smashing shit. And if you wanted to raid or do mythics or anything, or do the challenge mode stuff, you had to get raid gear.
For the way that it is, I'm just kind of preparing myself to be let down by it, because it doesn't see it's half of what I would want. I personally am on the template side of things. I enjoyed Legion, and I would have liked Legion to be more templated for PvP. Every spec was balanced and tuned to arenas on their own, so every spec was competitive and fun to play.
No. In fact, because of the template, less specs, competitive, less compositions were usable. Paladins, mages, and monks still won for free. This is 8.3, obviously. I'm trying to find the Legion one. Oh, hold up. They might. Well, I can't find what I'm looking for.
I much preferred that personally. But if we're going to grind and unlock gear from PvP, and then the gear is ultimately not great, I'm just going to get PvE gear. I'm just not going to pay
Yep.
attention to this.
Yep.
It's like all
100%.
this effort going in to give this vendor. Basically, the only problem that it's solved is that you can more or less pick the schedule of the gear. So, for example, in BFA, right, you would cap 500 Conquest, and at the end of week 1, Blizzard would determine what piece you could get. So let's just say you could, in week 1, you could buy a helmet. So you'd go to the little Mugambala guy or the brown, wherever vendor for Alliance. I haven't played Alliance at all in BFA. Go to Mugambala, and you would turn it in for a pretty low item level guaranteed helm slot, right? So instead of them picking the schedule for you, you can pick the schedule because, well, I'm not going to earn enough points to buy my weapon this week, but if I save for 2 weeks, I could buy the weapon. So it took the schedule out of their hands and gave it to us, I guess, if you thought that was a problem, and solve that. And the other problem it's solving is if I jump into random battlegrounds, I'm not just randomly awarded the slot with the stats. I work towards the slot and the stats, right? Like it's solving half the problem, but the other problem that is like not maybe it's only 40% of the problem. The 60% of the problem is that the gear is just bad. I'm not going to put the time to grind the random battleground gear for bad gear. There's just no. I would much rather do the dungeon for an hour at the shot at my best piece of gear than grind random battlegrounds for I don't even know how long to get that much honor to upgrade it. And you'll be able to determine those pieces, unless they wanted to add a deterministic method to PvE also.
They did.
I guess it would be important to note that you will still cap, right? And you'll get a weekly vault for PvP gear. So maybe you're just going to have a lot of gear thrown at you all at once. And it doesn't end up being a problem. I'm just walking my way over to the Great Vault. Like you would cap, and then you would go over here, and this city gets pretty confusing. I think it's the next door. You would go over here. We're almost getting there. Where I know it's the next one. I know it's no, not this one, but the next one. I know it is. You would go over to the Great Vault after your weekly cap. This one. Open it. Depending on how many games you played, I think you'll be able to choose more pieces of gear. So like that weekly random gear.
So this is a great idea. And I think the intention of the honor vendor is more so meant to be a system for replacing the gear that needs a catch-up mechanic. I don't think the honor system is meant to be something that is a for sure. It's like, here, you got all this gear from everywhere else, but you still have, BFA example, you still have 420 bracers, 450 item level. Just go buy the honor piece real quick. We're chilling. Still, even if you apply that logic, it's kind of a waste of time. I think it's completely reasonable for you to just make the honor vendor competitive.
Still exists, right? And I think the more conquest you earn, if you earn the maximum, you'll get 3 chests, and then you pick which one you want.
Again,
so open
like,
3 of these.
You just spam BGs, spam them and spam them, spam them, and then you get a guarantee. Okay. You spam mythic dungeons and spam them and spam them and spam them, and here. Why is there an item level difference?
And it'll give you a helmet from the first one, bracers from the second one, boots from the third one, and then you pick which one you want to try and alleviate some of that RNG that was found with the chest system currently in BFA, where you couldn't pick what slot it was. You can sort of pick. It's still not great, but if you did everything maxed out in the content for everything, you've got a very large selection of stuff, but you would again have to do everything. It's not PvP only. But you've got this on top of that deterministic system. I'm not sold on it at the moment, on it actually addressing the core issue of PvP players' complaints for wanting a progression system through PvP. So I'm very worried about it. The only improvements I could offer as solutions would be to have every single stat combination possible, right? Um, but if they do that, then it's going to be mandatory for PvEers because then they can get their best statted gear through a deterministic method. So
We can already do that, though. What? Spam freehold, the keystone. Sure, it may take a while,
I don't feel like
but it's gonna happen. $10 worth of BGs for a piece of gear versus 10 days worth of freehold spam for a piece of gear. What do you think is gonna gear you faster? You're probably gonna get that freehold piece on the first day. Saying.
that solution is going to be a go. And then the other solution would be to add a PvP stat that enhances this gear awarded from PvP in PvP. But it seems like they backed down on that initially in the earlier stages of alpha. There was like a PvP stat data link or something, and then they backed down on that. And there was an interview with Ian where they said they don't plan on doing a PvP specific stat. So right now, like I want to be really excited about Shadowlands. I think there's a lot of cool and awesome stuff coming, but I don't think that this iteration of the PvP vendors is going to deliver what
Upside, you get legendary crafting pieces from the PvP vendor. So even if the gear is irrelevant, the PvP vendor is still required to get legendary crafting stuff.
the players who are asking for it are asking for. So hopefully there will be a solution to it. Otherwise, I have to bite the bullet and just do more PvE. Anyways, leave a comment down below what you think.
Bite the bullet to do more PvE. Yes, do the proverbial biting of the bullet to get geared. Alright. Well, I'm gonna probably upload all of